Good morning, ma'am.
বাইদেউ কৰবী বাইদেউ
Hello.
Yeah.
বাইদেউ শুনা পাইছে? মই প্ৰণৱ শইকীয়া কৈ আছো। আপুনি শুনিছে?
হয়।
শুনা পাইছে?
হয়, পাইছো।
ঠিক আছে।
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning and good evening from India. Now, before your presentation, we had 3 presentations. First presentation was taken by Dr. R.C. Sharma. He is from Dr. B.R. Ambedkar University of New Delhi. He basically he's famous as a Google teacher, and he has a wide experience of working across Africa, Southeast Asian nations. He was involved in IGNU also. He basically focused in his presentation on different tools available in the Google platform or other platform. How can these tools can be used? Not only tools, links also, important links to know about how to use safely and securely different gadgets or different sources.
I think, ma'am, he got disconnected. I'm Indrani, the co-convener.
Hello, Indrani.
Good morning, ma'am.
I reconnected again. Yeah. So, and he also has some psychological issues also, emotional issues that to be taken care of during conducting online classes. And the second session was taken by our Lopita madam. She presented her experience in conducting online classes at universities, and she also said that she was also novice in
Ma'am, probably he has again disconnected.
Yeah, the bandwidth is low. It's giving me that signal that
right.
That's okay.
It's okay, ma'am.
It helps if you turn off your video. Like I can turn off my video now, and then when I speak, I'll turn it on, and you can turn it off. That way, we can save some bandwidth.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes the videos make it very challenging.
Ma'am, Dr. Pranav Soike is having some network problem, so he's trying to connect.
Okay.
We are waiting for our participants to join. 2 minutes yet left to be 8. So we are waiting at least for 5 minutes, then we can start.
If you don't mind, can you please enable the screen sharing for me so I can share my screen when I start?
Sure, ma'am. I will ask our IT member who is there. I'll tell him.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, ma'am. No.
And Korobi madam, my bandwidth issue. So I off my video so that I can communicate.
Okay.
We have participants from Malaysia. We have participants from Bangladesh Open University. We have participants from different open universities across India. And also we have our all faculty members of the university, as well as we have a different study centers across Assam. So lots of college teachers and university teachers also joining in this particular workshop. And since we selectively invited people to join this, so our population is 107 or 8 like that. So we keep it a small population, but a diverse population, so that we can discuss extensively whatever topics we have taken, so that all these people can get maximum benefit and take this learning.
Okay.
Sorry, ma'am. Sir has again disconnected. Maybe his network problem, and all the participants are joining, and within 2-3 minutes we'll start the workshop.
Okay. Sounds good.
Ma'am, you can try to share your screen.
Okay. Can you see mine?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
It's
ma'am.
visible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me know when I need to start.
Okay, ma'am.
Ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, it is almost 50 participants has joined, and can we start?
Arunima.
Oh, sir.
Arunima.
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah, within 3-4 minutes, all participants will join. So they are joining. So you please start.
Okay, sir. Within 2-3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So do I start now or do I wait?
Ma'am, I think we
Just
can
1 or
start.
2 minutes, madam.
Okay.
Arunima, let's start.
Okay, sir. So, good evening to all the participants, and a very good morning to you, ma'am, Dr. Korobi Besburwa, ma'am. And on behalf of Surya Kumar Bhuya School of Social Science, we'd like to welcome all the participants to the second session of our second day of the 3-day international workshop. And we are very delighted and honored by the presence of Dr. Korobi Basbarua ma'am. We welcome you ma'am to the session, and we are very happy that you are amidst us. And Dr. Basbarua is serving as an associate professor in the public administration program at the College of Architecture, Planning and Public Affairs at the University of Texas, Arlington. She teaches core courses in the non-profit management specialization track and manages the graduate certificate in urban non-profit management. In fact, this April, she co-edited a book titled Teaching Non-Profit Management under Edward Elgar Publishing, adding up her numerous publications. And adding to her awards and accolades is the Award for Excellence in Teaching Training from the United States Distance Learning Association in the year 2020 at the International Distance Learning Award. And now, ma'am, we are eagerly anticipating your presentation on 5 E's of online classroom management from you. And at the same time, I'd like to request all the participants to put your to mute your mic, and if you have any queries or any questions, you can communicate it through the chat box, and after ending the session, our speaker ma'am will give all the answers, and at the end of the session, you can also directly communicate with ma'am. And again, I welcome all of you, and now I'd like to request ma'am to take the session. Ma'am, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I am so honored to be here to be speaking with you and talking about classroom management. Um, I was invited to speak on classroom management based on my experience in teaching classes online. We have a program, and as Arunima just introduced me, I work in the Public Affairs and Planning Department, and we have a program completely online. It's the Masters of Public Administration program, and it is completely online, and I've been teaching that since 2013, besides, of course, the on-campus classes. So most of the things that I'll present today are based on my experiences over the years of teaching online. And I'm not saying that I know everything. I'm still learning because every day is a new challenge on how to teach online. And the technologies keep changing and evolving. So we have to learn a lot every day just to be ahead of the curve and just to be able to meet students' needs. So today I'll be talking about classroom management in the online forum based on my experiences of teaching online courses. Okay, so my background is in economics, management, and public policy, and I teach courses both on campus, online, and hybrid classes in nonprofit management, public administration, public management, public policy, program evaluation, and organizational behavior. And we basically train future city leaders, federal government officers, police officers, law enforcement, then city managers. So anybody who works in the public and the nonprofit sector, we train them. And I'm also on the advisory board of the Center for Research on Teaching Excellence at UT Arlington. And that's where we come up with new ways or train and conduct workshops for teaching effectiveness. Although we are a research university, a very high research university, teaching is still important because we have to teach to our students. And so although we are evaluated mostly on research, we also have to be good teachers. And we try to come up with effective teaching practices, and we conduct workshops to teach new faculty and faculty who had more research but now want to be in the teaching side of it. So I train people and new faculty for e-learning and organization administration. I'm also a faculty fellow for the professional learning community for this digital learning technologies. So we have this link lab, and some people are selected from across the university, and we brainstorm and do focus groups to come up with ideas on how to better implement the new technologies that are coming up every day. We are still trying to be ahead of the curve, but we are almost always lagging behind because technology is evolving so fast. Um, and because of my work in the online forum, online courses, and the risks that I have taken in my courses, based on that, I got a national level, it's actually an international level award on teaching excellence. And so I'm going to talk about my experiences in the online program. So today I'm going to talk about online education, right? So this is the focus of this workshop. Um, if you look at the distance education models, how we have evolved over the years, the traditional distance education was what correspondence course, where learning was done at the students' own pace and time in their own environment, and printed course materials were shipped to them or posted or via postal mail to them. Or sometimes it was faxed, or they could get extra tutoring through telephone. So this was the traditional model. This happened many years ago. Since about the early 2000s, the focus on how to evolve and use technology to provide this education happened, right? And so learning is still done in one's own pace and time. That's still there. However, because of the technology usage and because of the advancement in technology, we see a lot of courses that have both asynchronous and synchronous education or instruction. And asynchronous, I believe you already had a session on that. So asynchronous is when the course materials are already uploaded to the online learning management system, and students can review those and do the assignments. And so it's done without that much of interaction between the instructor and the students. But in synchronous, we use video conferencing. Again, that's an advancement in technology. We have now Zoom. We can do Teams, which is a Microsoft similar to Skype. We use all of these technologies to do live instruction or live lectures with our students from across the world. So because of the advancement of technology, we are adopting new technologies to better serve our students' needs. So there is more interaction, and there is more, learning happening, because we look at the learning outcomes as well. But I would like to say that the biggest problem here is accessibility, and this is true for any country. No matter how advanced we are in the technological side of things, there are still areas, there are still places where it's very difficult to get access to good internet connection, good Wi-Fi connection, and access some of these courses. So that's the reason we are trying to come up with ways to better serve our student population who might not have access to strong internet facilities at home, but they still want to take courses online because right now it's the pandemic, of course, but earlier it's because they were not able to come for classes on campus. So here I would like to take a quick poll, and if you could use the chat feature to answer this question. What do you, as a teacher, focus more on in your online or distance courses? Is it the content or is it the technology? You can answer A or B. I'll wait for a few seconds and see what people have to say. And I'm assuming most of you have taught online before. Thank you. I have 3 A's now. Okay. Okay, since content is the focus of uh, most of you, and that's amazing, that's great, because that's what I'm going to focus on today. And so I just wanted to take a feel of my audience and see if I'm speaking to the right people. And that helps me, and I'm pretty sure you'll understand what I'm talking about, because content is king. That's what I believe in. Technology is just the assist, it just assists us, but it's the content that is what we need to be focusing on. So yes, thank you so much for your responses. I'm glad that almost all of you think content is important, but some of you also use technology, focus on that as well. So the things that I'll be talking today will make sense, and you'll be able to interact more with me. Okay, so moving on. Um, so it's not about technology, it's about learning. That's what Stephen and Spatcher said, and he's considered to be one of the pioneer in online education. And he said that if you focus too much on technology, it's not going to work. You have to focus on the learning. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. How learning is more important than technology. Although we have to struggle to learn the new technology, we have to challenge ourselves, we have to understand, and then also be, I call myself the help desk, because students ask me, Dr. B, how can I access this? How do I access that? And so I become the IT help desk, and I have to answer questions about technology. And technology is not my strong suit. I simply learn on the job. I use it, so I know about it. So I have to do a lot of Googling to understand how to serve my students' needs. However, for students, it's also challenging to get to the learning by bypassing the technology or by using the technology. So, what the key point here is, it's not about technology, and that should not consume us as that much. It's about the learning. So, learning is way more important than the technology that we use. So, in online instruction or teaching, there are three things that's very important. It's the learning design, competency-based learning, and then the tools and technology. So what is learning design? It is how you develop your courses, right? So for us, ours is a competency-based learning system, so which means that we have certain skill sets that we want our students to accomplish at the end of the semester. So based on that, we design our courses. So it's very important to have an idea of what are the learning outcomes, what are the things that we want our students to know. And based on that, we develop the curriculum, we develop the courses. For the MPA program where I teach, the Masters of Public Administration, it's easier because we are accredited by a national level organization, and they set certain standards which every student of that has an MPA degree has to have. And so they do audits every year to check if our students are accomplishing those skill sets. In our PhD program, we are also accredited by another agency, and so we know what our PhD students need to focus on, what kind of areas, what kind of research they have to do. So we can have an idea of what are the objectives from the particular course, and based on that, we design the whole thing. The problem with online, I wouldn't say problem, the issue with online teaching is that when we develop and design our courses, we also have to take the tools and technology that are involved in reaching out to our students. So how do we design our course and have the competencies included in that course and use the tools and technology that are provided to us, in our case, by your university? They mandate that this is the form you have to use. So we learn about it and then we start using it. So in online teaching, we have to have a balance of the learning design, the competency-based learning system, or in some programs they have learning objectives for each course, and that's basically what the skill sets you want to have in your students. And of course, the tools and technology which we have to learn almost every day. So the next question that I have for you is, what is the main challenge of online teaching for you? Is it the student-teacher interaction? Is it the technology, or is it coming up with learning outcomes for your class? Again, I'll use if you can use the chat feature to give me your feedback, that would be great. great. Yeah. Great. It's like almost all of them are challenging based on where you are from. However, I think, uh, yeah, A and C have the most votes, if I'm not mistaken. Great. Thank you so much for your responses. I really like interactive. I cannot just lecture to people, so I have all of these things going on for me. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'll move on here because time is of essence. So great. So the main challenges for online courses, for us, technology, uh, for me, technology is not as much of a problem as some of our students. Like I said earlier, no matter where you are in the United States or in India, there are areas where internet connectivity is not that strong. Um, when in the spring semester, when everything just moved online and our on-campus courses moved online, there were many students who could not get access to our online courses because they did not have a strong internet at home. There are some students who used to use the library's internet to access course materials, but the library was closed because of the pandemic, and so they had no other option to access the course materials online. So technology is a major issue for students, for us in my case. But of course, what I heard from your feedback is that technology can be a problem, especially in Assam. Someone wrote. So and I totally understand that. I've been to Assam several times, so I know how technology can be a real issue. But there are solutions to that, especially with smartphones. But yes, again, accessibility is a problem. Not everybody has access to a smartphone. Learning outcomes are challenging to develop, yes, but they can be done if you know what it is that you expect of your students, or what is it expect of your course. So what are the learning objectives of that particular course? What kind of skill sets you want your students to achieve at the end of the program, so that when they go out for jobs, you know that they are sure to get a job, because that's why they are in graduate school or undergraduate school, because they need to have a professional development plan, right? So for us, what we do for learning outcomes is we do focus groups of our potential employers, of our students. And based on that, we get feedback. And then based on that feedback, we develop the learning outcomes. And this is done at the national level, not just at the local level. And so we know exactly what kind of skill sets are required by potential employers, and that's the way we can develop our curriculum. The teacher-student interaction is very, very challenging even for us, because most students do not reach out and they lag behind, and so it also becomes a retention problem. Students drop out of the program because they don't feel part of that that environment. They don't feel a relationship happening with the peers or their instructors or the staff of the university or the college. And technological issues increase the problem of student-teacher interaction. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about this, the challenges of online classroom. So over here, as you already know, I'm teaching to the choir. Digital instruction is what we do when we do online classroom, right? The problem again with digital instruction is that if students don't have access to strong internet facilities or a smartphone, then it becomes an issue. They are left behind. Even in a country like United States, I can tell you that very few. There are areas and there are families where they don't have strong internet connection. They might have just one laptop to share among the household, and so it becomes a challenge for them to get online and do their homework or assignments, or be in a live lecture. Social interaction is way challenging when it comes to online classrooms. So I'll give you an example. When I go to my on-campus class, so I teach only in the graduate program, and my classes are either from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. All of our classes are evening classes because our students are full-time workers. So I teach from either 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. or 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. So I usually arrive there about 15-20 minutes early in the classroom. We have to open our classroom too. And then I wait for the students to come in, and then while the students are still coming in, we start chatting, chit chat. What did you do over the weekend? How's your family and things like that? And so we develop a relationship. And I'm pretty sure those of you who have taught on campus pretty much the same. So the students know me as a human being. I know them. I know what problems they're facing. So we chit chat, talk about other things other than the course, and then I start the lecture. It's for 3 hours, and at the end of the 3 hours, when some students are leaving the classroom, there are students waiting in line to talk to me about course assignments or exams or things like that. So it's a way to develop that kind of interaction. In the online classroom, that doesn't happen. I can't even make students to turn on the videos because, again, bandwidth problems, because of privacy issue, because that's a big thing over here. You cannot make your students turn on their videos. Um, so I don't even know if I don't even know if there is a student behind the camera. If I'm talking to students, I'm talking to the Zoom wall. So just like right now, I cannot see anyone. I'm just talking to myself. But I know there are people over there, and you all are listening to me based on your responses. I can see that. So the social interactions become quite challenging in the online classroom. Um, in our campus courses, we do a lot of problem solving. So in a 3 hour graduate level class, that too in the evening, the students come in after a full day of work. And the work over here is from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And so that after that, they come to class. And when they come to class, they don't really have the strength or energy to listen to me rambling on for 3 hours, right? So I have to make my course interesting and interactive, and so that I can have people participate in what we are doing. So we do a lot of hands-on case studies and simulations and role playing, things like that, and that's how we try to take a problem and try to solve it. So there's a lot of collaborative work happening in the physical classroom. But in the online classroom, those things are a little bit harder, especially because students don't see each other, and students don't want to, work with each other because of the scheduling problem, the time problem. Some of my students are right now, the class I'm teaching, two of my students are in Afghanistan. They are deployed there. They are in the U.S. Army. I have a student in Philippines, and there are students all across the United States. So it's very difficult to coordinate mutually convenient time to talk about problem solving and case studies and teamwork. But I still do that, and I take the risk. I try to do that, and students have really benefited from it. They have used it in their resumes to talk about the projects that we have done as small groups in the classroom. So I try to engage students, but it is very challenging. So that's that's another challenge of the online classroom. So my third poll is, what is online classroom management according to you? Is it academic discipline? Is it effective technology use? Or is it course learning outcomes? Or is it something else that I didn't think about, but you are facing it and you can write it down if it is not something in the list? Okay. Great. Thank you so much um, for your responses. I see that a lot of people talked about A and B and making students more engaged in the classroom. So yeah, I understand that very well. I have been struggling with it myself, and I have tried many different things to make the classroom more, my online classroom more interactive and engaging, and and it has worked based on students' review. So we have student feedback after every course, and students provide their feedback. I also take an informal feedback midterm to understand if I am meeting students' needs. So that gives me the input about what I need to change or if everything is going on well. And they tell me they don't shy away from anything. They just say what they have to say, and it really helps. I like candid feedback, and that's what I get, and that's helpful. So yeah, online classroom management, all of these things are pretty challenging. Academic discipline, it's hard to know what students are doing when they're taking an exam, if they are plagiarizing a paper. We have tools for that to check whether a paper has been plagiarized from somewhere else. And so students are very, very scared about that because if I find anything, I have to report it to the discipline office and they are kicked out of the program. So that's taken very seriously at UT Arlington and almost everywhere in the United States. And so students are very careful about that. However, academic discipline also involves students who take over a conversation and they are bullying each other online. They use the discussion board to, you know, I have received threats from students because I sided with one group, not the other, and I got threats on my email and my personal phone as well. So it becomes very difficult, especially in my case, since I'm an international person over here and I'm talking to white Texans, so it's difficult. But I know how to you know come up with ways to maintain discipline in the classroom, and that's again over the years experience. I'm still learning, but there are ways we can do that. Effective technology use, I try to do, as like someone pointed out, it's already in the LMS, so it's easier. I try not to use things outside of the LMS because some students get lost. And especially in my case, I use social media. I use Twitter a lot in my previous classes, but I found out that students who worked in the municipal government cannot use Twitter because it's considered to be a problem. They might be sharing the personal views, but it could be seen as the organizational views, and so they can lose their jobs if they say something that does not go along with their organizational views. So I've stopped using Twitter, but I use blogs and other things to make it much more engaging and interactive. So moving on, thank you for your responses. So classroom management involves supervision, referring, facilitating the classes, courses, then academic discipline. It also involves teaching and social presence, which is there in the physical classroom, but in the online classroom, it can be a little bit more challenging. So here is a table that kind of compares the physical and the online classroom management. And you'll see that these are the things that we talk about when it comes to managing a classroom. Supervision, refereeing, which I already talked about in the previous slide. So in the physical classroom, you'll see all of them are present, but in the online classroom, the teaching presence and the social presence are not as much prevalent. So I'm going to talk about the teaching presence and the social presence today. So there is this community of inquiry theory. This was a framework developed in the early 2000s to talk about, um, the philosophical view of what online and blended learning could be about. So here it talks about the whole educational experience that a student receives, right, when they come to college or a program. And so the educational experience involves the cognitive presence, which is the learning, the content, the teaching presence, where the instructor comes in and uses the cognitive, the learning, the content to teach, and then the social presence, which in, like I said in my previous example, in a online, in a physical classroom, it's very easy to do it because you're sitting together in a classroom. In our case, it's for 3 hours, so you have to know each other. So the social presence is there. But in the online classroom, that was a big challenge. Right now, this model has been way more evolved, and people have used this to conduct research on classroom activities and on online classroom activities, and they have found that the teaching presence is more involved not just in the cognitive presence but also in the social presence. So the teacher's social presence, in short, is very important for the content as well as for developing that online community of learners. So in a sense, it's a responsibility of the teachers to make sure that the students are engaged in the coursework, the students are engaged with each other, that students are involved in teacher instructor student interactions. So it falls on the teacher. So what does the research say about teaching and social presence? So this teacher has to be present as a real person. They have to be more visible, and the more when the instructor's presence is increased, it also increases students' performance in that classroom. So that's very important. And research also says that a variety of tools and techniques must be used in order to improve students' performance. And the course design is also very important in how the students perform, how engaged the students are, um, how uh, how they feel ownership of the class. So again, all of these things, the teacher does it. So it falls on the teacher. There is a concept called learning design, which is about creation of new knowledge, active learning activities, critical thinking skills, a learner-centered environment, using real-world context and blended methods of course delivery. So what this essentially means is that in a classroom, when we are trying to come up with our coursework or a curriculum and a learning objectives, we have to make sure that we are creating some new knowledge. So it's not about the teachers just going in and teaching, it's about the teacher also learning in the whole process. So there should be more interaction. And how do you do that? Through active learning activities, like when they are, say, working on a project that's helping, say, a lower income community or lower income neighborhood. They learn something, students learn something about the problems facing in that neighborhood. And I have done projects in very low income neighborhoods in South Dallas where it's full of gangs and drugs, and I take my students there and we do field work, we do projects in there over there. And then when the same thing happened in my online, I just uh, design the projects and the students meet with people online or via Skype or telephone, and then they work on the project. I facilitate the whole thing. So this develops the critical thinking skills, what is not provided in the books. So you go outside of the books, and then when you do real life projects in a real world context, you understand that some of the theories that the books talk about, in reality, it's quite different. So how do you balance these, right? And it also develops those skill sets that we want our students to learn, to have. So when they go out in the field and work, they are not, um, you know, they are um, not oblivious to what's happening around them, but they know whom they have to serve. So using these real world context, case studies, projects, small group discussions, simulation, those kind of activities, the students are more engaged. And my reviews have said that the courses where I've used more projects and case studies, students have learned a whole lot, because sometimes we have this perspective and this attitude, and we try to solve a problem with that. But when we're working in a group, in a team, then we get all the different perspectives, and the more diverse it is, the better it is. So you can see a problem from different lenses, and it really helps in increasing engagement, increasing interest in the classroom, and students are less likely to drop out. So content management is very important, and I'll go fast because we don't have much time. So in content management, we define the course objectives and the learning outcomes of that particular course. Then we come up with the content to match those objectives and the outcomes. For us, so when we have an assignment, we have to map it back to the learning objectives. Otherwise, what's the point of having this assignment, right? The assignment must be aligned back to the course learning outcomes. And then important is we have to think, if it is for us, we have eight-week courses and 16-week courses. And based on that, we have to design the content. Are students able to complete all of these in 8 weeks? Are students able to complete all of these in 16 weeks? So based on that, we develop the content. We try not to put a lot of content, because it's just over information and students don't really gain much. and I kind of assign a lot of tasks. So it's not just a midterm and a final exam. I have deliverables or assignments every week, and so they get uh, evaluated, assessed every week. And I know it's a lot of grading work for me, but at the end of the day, I can see that students have learned so much. They have improved over time, and that's really the objective I have in my classes. And I also provide them with additional resources that they might need. So understanding your audience is very important. So who are your students? What goals do they have? Why are they in your program? Are they there for professional development, or is it to just they just want to learn more and then maybe take some civil service examination, right? So that's important, knowing what your students' goals are and expectations are. Also important is to understand what your program in your department, their objectives are, because these have to be aligned. Otherwise, you are in one department but teaching something else. So which we don't do, of course. But I'm just saying that it's very important to understand what your students' needs are when developing your content in your curriculum and the tools that you use. So moving on to the 5 E's of e-classroom management, this is something which I developed based on my, again, experience. And again, this is not a complete list of the E's, but it's something to think about. The first one is engagement. So having clear and manageable course objectives is very important, because then students understand that, hey, this is what Dr. B is trying to teach me. This is what I'm going to get out of this classroom. And if it is something that's not interesting for them, they might leave. That's fine. You don't want somebody who was forced to be in your classroom and then they do, subpar work. You want somebody who's really interested and engaged and active in the course, right? So it's important to have those objectives and have clear objectives so students know. I do a lot of teamwork, collaboration, and participation engages the students. It's active learning, it's critical thinking skill sets, and it's also peer-to-peer network, relationship building, social capitals. So all of these things come together. And you see you have a cohort of students who are, they are good friends, they know the classroom very well, um, they are loyal to the program as well. For us, that's very important. Um, Student feedback is important. Like I said earlier, I do a midterm feedback and a final feedback. The final feedback is not done by me, it's done by the university, and the results are used in my evaluation. But the midterm feedback, I do it, and it's anonymous. And both feedback are anonymous actually, but the one that I do, I just need to know if I'm on the right track, if students are getting what they expected to get. And so I can, if I need to tailor my course, change my course a little bit, I do that based on, the average student feedback, not one person. Sometimes there's one person, I don't like the book. Okay, that's fine. Deal with it, because one person don't change it. There's always this one person who says things like that. But I take the average feedback, and based on that, I change. I also try to present information in micro chunks. Like if it's in my online courses, I do like a 10-minute video, sometimes a 5-minute, because if you know today's generation, there's so much happening everywhere. The attention span is not more than 10 minutes. In some cases, not more than 5 minutes. So I do a lot of videos and PowerPoint presentations for my asynchronous coursework, and that's where I do short 5-minute to 10-minute videos, so that students have that kind of attention span to cover the courses. If I put an hour or even 30 minutes, they won't even click on it. So I do and this is called micro learning. So put in small bits and pieces, and if they are interested, they can go to the full video or the full lecture. But they get what they needed to get from that small 5-minute video. So, like I said earlier, the lesson design is very critical to keeping students engaged. Next is experiment. I have experiment in my online classes with lots of projects, case studies, and something that we call experiential learning, which means throughout the semester, they work on only one significant project. And they have to write reflection papers on that project. They have to write a reflection paper in the beginning, middle, at the end of the term. And this gives them an idea of is this project giving them the skill sets that they need? Is this project, changing their mindsets, changing their perspective. In our case over here, it's about low-income neighborhoods, high-income neighborhoods, and then racial tension, all of these things. Unless we understand the other perspective, it's very difficult to teach, right? So having students go out in the field and working with people who are facing all these problems really helps them to change their perspective and see how they can come up with solutions that will help that neighborhood or that community. And so that really increases their critical thinking skills, and so it really helps them, and even the university, because we are now not just the ivory tower, you know, but we are there for the community. We are not just there to produce graduates every year, every semester, but these graduates are doing something for the people. That's our objective. And then one problem associated with experimentation is accessibility. Um, not like I said earlier, not everyone has access to a laptop or a smartphone or a video cam, and so it becomes a little bit difficult. But we are fortunate that at our university, we take students very, very important. They are very critical to us. And if a student says that they don't have a laptop, then our library loans them one. And our library was open during the pandemic, and so if students did not have Wi-Fi at home, they could come in and then access the course materials over there. However, it's not always easy or convenient for some students who live far away. But yeah, that is a problem, and smartphones help. And what I do is I make sure that teams have students from all diversity. If someone doesn't have a webcam or laptop or internet connection, a strong internet connection, then I just ask them to do the editing of the final report. So that way they are contributing to the project, but they might not necessarily be involved in all the Skype and the Zoom meetings. Encouragement is very important. Constructive feedback really helps the student flourish. And traditionally there was this notion that when teachers provide feedback, they provide negative feedback, or say this is out of 100 you get 50, and then no feedback at all. What I have learned over the years is every time, and like I said earlier, I have assignments every week, and I read all the assignments, I review them, and then I write notes down there. So if it is good, I make a point to note what is good about it, what is not good about it, what can be done to improve what they have written already, and what they need to think about. So it's more like a SWOT analysis, but it is not. But I talk about their strong points and what they need to work on more. And so it helps the student to understand that this is what I need to be working on. This is good, but this is what I have to be working on. So at the end of the semester, I don't have to worry about those students anymore. Students take feedback very seriously, at least in my experience, they do, most of them. And then at the end of the semester, I see papers that are written very professionally because they have been getting constructive feedback throughout the semester. It's a lot of work, I tell you, a lot of work. And we have students, lots. It's in online classes, at least the 60, and it's a graduate level class, so it's a lot. And I have also taught courses that had 150 students, and so it's a lot of work, but it helps. And timely response. I have a discussion board in my LMS, and that's where students post questions that help everybody, and I respond immediately because it comes to my phone as well, and I can see that someone has a question and it comes to my phone, and I respond from my phone. I don't even have to log into Canvas. We use Canvas for this. And then one important thing is setting the ground rules. So I have classroom policies in my syllabus, and that's where I say that I'll grade this paper within 72 hours. I'll respond within 24 hours, and students need to do this, that, and so everything is in the syllabus. So the classroom policies are there. If somebody is late with their assignment, what kind of penalties they have, everything is there. So they know from day one that this is what she's expecting. And so they try to be on time, and that helps. And they know what is due when, and so the time management comes to them naturally because of all the reminders that I send. Oh, I also send reminders every week, and that's the thing I do for all of my online classes. Even if students don't have a question, I try to assume these will be the questions that week, and then I kind of answer those questions. Empathize, think, pair, share. So one of the things that I do is that if they have a question and they are expecting me to answer, I say that post it in the discussion board. What happens is I ask also students to read the discussion board, other students, and if they have the answer, they can answer first. Then if they're right, then I say, yeah, you're right, you help the student. And if they are not right, then I say, well, you can think about this as well. So it helps in creating that online community, you know, um, which is hard in an online classroom, as I said earlier. But in a physical classroom, somebody asks a question, somebody else would answer. I don't even have to answer sometimes. But in online, it's sometimes difficult. So I say, well, if there are students who have a better answer than me, they can answer first. And so they think, they pair, like they build communities, and then they share resources. So this also helps in understanding the perspective of other people. It helps me understand what students are expecting and what their needs are in terms of that week's coursework. Um, and the other thing is like I said, there are students who may not have access to internet or a webcam, and then I can understand their needs based on their questions, and then I email them directly and I say, hey, what's up with you, and what do you need help with, and they give me their candid answer, and they're usually very frank with their answers. And so I try to help provide them with resources, I connect them with resources, and then it also provides mutual respect, because students now know that somebody is looking out for them, and that's very important to uh, keep students engaged as well as retain students in the program. Evaluation, I do formative evaluation, which is like through the process evaluation throughout the whole semester. Like I said earlier, I evaluate students throughout the whole semester, and then I also do a summative evaluation where I look up all their coursework. Because sometimes what happens is by the end of the semester, maybe someone in their family got sick or passed away, or something happened to them and their finals was not as good. But then I can see this person based on the whole work throughout the semester, and I can make a decision whether I should give them an extension, or if this person has been flunking throughout and is really not interested in doing the work. So that helps in understanding a student's work and how good they are, how well they have responded to the coursework. And I use rubrics for unbiased grading. So I grade everybody using the same rubric, and the rubric is posted for them so they understand what the expectation for that particular assignment is, and they know what I'll be looking at. So I grade based on the rubrics, and so everybody knows that I'm not being biased or I'm not being subjective in my assessment. I use the rubric to grade their work. So some of the score strategies that I have used is number one, teacher presence. Like I said, your visibility is very, very important. Feedback, constructive and regular feedback is important. Your social presence, how you do it, it's up to you. For me, I try not to be too nagging. There's this where you might sound nagging, like do this, do that. I don't do that. What I try to do is I do weekly announcements every Monday morning. I say these are the things that are due this week. These are the expectations. These are the things that you need to read. I simply remind them, and then I say, do you have any questions? If you do, let me know. If you have questions about the grade, email me. If you have questions about the course, use the discussion board. And based on that, they respond. And I also post short videos saying, hey, this assignment is due, and make sure the assignment is not more than 7 pages or 10 pages. And I do a short video and post it there, and it also helps in making it more visible. And so students, I can see how many students clicked on that. So I know if students read or viewed my post, viewed my video, and so I know if students are engaged in the coursework. We also have something called Inspire for Faculty, and I can see when students logged in, how long they logged in, what are the things that they looked at, and I can see who have not logged in say the last 1 week. And based on that, I send an email saying, hey, what's up with you? Are you okay? I haven't seen you in the classroom. And they're like, oh, Dr. B, I was just busy, I had this, that, and sorry for not logging in, I'll do it. And then I see them get back in the classroom. So it really helps doing that nudging thing. That's like behavioral thing that we do. Then strategy two is content management, how you develop your course structure, how interesting you make, how logically it flows. That's also very important. And for us, it's way more important to have goals and objectives and learning outcomes and aligning all of the coursework to those objectives and outcomes. And we try to use tools that are very easily available because we need to think about all students, not one or two who have very high internet connectivity at home. So yeah, also we try to use a lot of Google Docs and things like that that's easily incorporated or embedded within Canvas so that students can access some of these. Most of them have access to Google, so they can use that. And we also have Facebook groups of students, and that's where they sometimes post their questions, and I'm on that group as well, so I know what students are needing at that point. So I try to use different technology and tools. Sometimes it gets overwhelming, I tell you that, because I have to check everything. But I tell them that this is the only time I'll be on campus, this is the only time I'll be on Facebook. So if you expect an answer within the next 5 minutes, email me. Otherwise, I may not be able to check. So I set some certain ground rules so that students know what if I'll responding to their questions. And then the most important is having a variety of assessment. Some students do very well with exams. Some students do very well with papers, writing papers. Some are very good with project. They can do field work, and some students do very well in teamworks, like small classroom discussions. So I have a variety of assessments throughout the term. I do small group discussions. I do discussion boards where they are paired with other people and they have to work to solve a problem. And I do projects in the community. I have papers, and I can see that some students excel at exams. Some students have anxiety attacks when it comes to exams. So having a variety of assessments really help in getting all of the students to flourish, to shine. And that's one of the reasons why students, don't drop out of the classroom, because they know they will be able to pass the class because there's something over there that they are really good at. So it really helps. Communication is super important. Syllabus is for us the first form of communication. I send out my syllabus about a week or two before class starts so that students know what the course is about. They can get the books already, and because from day one we start the ground running. So the syllabus is the most important form of communication. We have all the classroom policies, departmental policies, university policies in the syllabus. The problem with syllabus is students don't read the whole thing. They only read about the assignments and when they are due. That's it. They don't even look at the other policies. So what we do is I use regular updates, announcements to make sure that I drive home the policies that I want them to know about. So I keep talking about that in my announcements and my updates and my emails. And especially because I do a lot of projects in the classroom, I need to have more communication because students get all scared when they talk about projects. And by being there, by communicating, by being transparent, I try to provide the confidence that they need in order to do well in the project. Also, moderation of discussion. Some discussions become very, very contentious, and students have an online fight when it comes to some issues like, say, over here, gun control is one, and then lately it has been the Black Lives Matter. And so I have to come in and moderate the discussions by trying to talk about perspectives and beliefs and things like that. So moderation of discussion is also important. The students feel that, hey, there's someone who has was trying to have an objective view over here. And I say that no, opinions are allowed. Everything has to be based on objective discussion and facts and figures. And so that helps a lot too. Okay, almost end. Learning communities are important. So collaborative work, small group activities, using social media. Like I said, I used to use Twitter. I stopped it. Now there are Facebook groups. I try to answer over there, but it really helps in developing the network of students. That's important for us because we know whether students like a program or not based on all of these groups that they create. discussion boards for me, I did a research on what's the best way to build community. And I found that in two of my courses with huge online courses, discussion boards were considered to be by far the best way to communicate with other students. I also have an introduction discussion board where students post their introductory videos or their things about them, about their personal lives, and so you get to know them very well. That's how I knew that some of my students are in the army, some of the students are teachers, some of them are working as city managers or the federal government, CIA, and things like that. So I know who they are based on these discussions. So it really helps in creating learning communities online. Finally, outreach is important. One of the other strategies of the 5Es is to monitor students' participation, like I do through my LMS. We have the Inspire for faculty, and that's how I know if students have logged on to the course, and I can see when, where, how long, and things like that. So it really helps in understanding whether students find the content engaging based on how long they are. And how many times they have viewed. So that's important. And if somebody has not viewed, then I can reach out to them. I try to, like I said, have accessible options. I keep online office hours. They can either call me, text me, or do video conferencing if they have any problems, or sometimes just to say hello. Because in the pandemic, some students are all alone in their apartments. They haven't left their apartment. They haven't seen any human beings, so they like to talk to me sometimes. And I have regular reminders, and that helps with the outreach as well. So the key takeaways of this lecture is that online education can be just as good as traditional face-to-face education. You just have to understand what it is that clicks with students, what are their preferred learning styles. Sometimes you don't have that on day one, but if you design your courses in a manner that it's engaging, it provides active learning skill sets and critical thinking skill sets, then students will find it engaging. Sometimes students learn better by doing hands-on activity than by doing exams. So having a variety of assessments and projects and things like that in the classroom can really help in keeping students engaged and active throughout the course. So the course structure and the design is very, very critical. So again, it falls on the teacher on how the course is designed and how much visibility the teacher provides, how much outreach the teacher provides, and the social experience the teacher provides really helps in keeping students engaged and interested in the curriculum. And so the 5Es that I talked about and the strategies from those 5Es cover almost all of the aspects of educational experience, the social, the cognitive, and the teaching presence. And like I said earlier, the teaching presence kind of creates the social presence for taking the content to the students. So with that, thank you very much for listening to my talk, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We are very delighted and by your session. It is very informative, and it was very interactive also. And nowadays, due to the pandemic, as we all know that the education system has drastically changed from primary level to the university level. It has become online. So mainly in the education system, as we know that the main concern is students' behavior, and it may even create disruption in the same classroom when the face-to-face traditional system is going on. But nowadays online education system has been immersed, and so how do we maintain order and encourage growth when we can't even see our students? And it's true that we'll need a different approach, in fact, and but online classroom management is not impossible. And in fact, there are some benefits of managing our student from distance. And the key is to be pragmatic, have the courage to manage what we can, and the serenity to accept what we can't, and the wisdom to know the difference. And considering all these things, ma'am, you have beautifully explained all the concepts that are related with the online courses and versus traditional courses and online management system. So now the session is open for the discussion. If any participants have their queries, then you can ask directly to ma'am, and you can communicate through the chat box. Thank you.
Thank you for liking my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello,
Yes.
this is Mohammad Umar Farooq. I'm from Bangladesh Open University. I have a question. As far student-centered learning is concerned, active learning strategies are required. In face-to-face session, we can apply different learning activities like jigsaw learning, gallery walk, educational games, case study, group presentation, agreement circle, and number game. But it is very difficult to apply it in online session. So how we can incorporate these active learning strategies? Thank you.
That's a great question. So I'll give you my experience how I have done that. Um, so I think this was in 2018, 17, something like that. I had this, I was teaching this online course that was 8 weeks long. It's really short and it goes super fast. It's an 8 weeks long course, and there were about what 45 students. And what I did was I randomly assigned them to small groups. And then I had the projects already outlined before class starts. That's what I do, because once you once class starts, there is no time to design a project, because project involves, like, as you already know, it involves a lot of planning and like what are the things that students will learn, and think about all of these things, and whether the project is feasible within a 16-week or an 8-week semester or course. So this was an 8-week course, and again, it's completely online. So students were from all over the world, and I had a few projects, about 5 or 6 projects already. I talked with the people, the agencies with whom they did the project, and then I, talked about the project plan. It involves a lot of project management, I tell you, but I did it. Like, I had, these are the objectives from this project. These are the deliverables. These are the timelines when students have to deliver. First day of class, I did a live session and I also recorded it. So the reason was, not all people, not all students can join me live, right? Because they're all over the world. So when I record and then I post it in campus, students can watch it later and understand what the expectations are. So I divided people or students in small groups, and they all worked with the designated agency. And I was involved with all of these groups, and I talked with them. I connected them to the agency representative, and then we worked throughout the semester on this group. When we met for class online, like synchronous sessions, we talk about how the theories that we, or the concepts that we learn in class that day, are connected to this project. So what are the things that they can take from the conceptual world, the theoretical world, into the real life project. And based on that, they were able to understand what I was expecting and what the agency was expecting. That is even more important, because they are going to produce a report that the agency is going to implement. So it's very important that we know what the agency is expecting. Otherwise, the whole exercise is completely, moot, right? So they have to understand the agency's expectations also. So we conducted the projects, we wrote reports, and for the students have to do reflection papers. They have to, and these are individual assignments, not group. but the project itself is a group assignment. So they wrote reflection papers, and when I read them, I realized that some students were not at all interested in the project, and this happens a lot. So don't get disheartened if students say, "I don't like this class because it has a project." That happens. So the first reflection paper said that they did not like the project. They were not even sure why they were doing it. And then in midterm, the reflection paper was, well, I kind of understand what the needs of the agency is and what they are expecting. And I know that the professor has a plan, and we simply have to follow that plan. And by the end of the semester, they were like, okay, we can do this. It's not that difficult. It is difficult to coordinate everybody's schedules, yes, but it's not that difficult to work on a project online. And one of the reasons why I emphasize having case studies and projects online is that, with the current situation, these people that have worked on these projects, like I have been doing this since 2013, um, they know how to use technology and how to work online. Since March, the US, almost all offices have been closed and people are working online, right? So for us, it's like, that's fine. We can work online because we have all the experience. And even our classes, students are now, they understand that these are some of the things that professors will expect. And so we better get used to it. These are some of the things our employers will expect, that we work online as teams. And over here, teams are very important. And even there, I know the organizations I have worked with, they're in a department, it's a team, right? There's so many faculty in a department. We all work together as a team. Our objectives are, similar. So it's the departmental objectives. So working as a team comes naturally to people because people are social beings, right? So how do you take this online? So to answer your question, there are different strategies. One of them is trying to understand what will work in your classroom. Is it a small group discussion or is it individual? I kind of experiment with both. I try not to put a lot of points or percentages for group work because there are students who will not contribute in a group activity. They think my team members will do it and I'll get the credit, right? And that this happens everywhere. There are free riders everywhere. They want others to do the work, they'll take the credit. Um, so what I do is I give more weight to the individual projects and less to the group work. And within group work, I also make sure that they do peer reviews. So if a student did not participate well, then their peers in that group can give them lesser points. And I take the average of the group, the grade, and then assign it to that particular student. So this also helps, for us as instructors, we try to uh, we try to manipulate their behavior a bit through the grades, and it works. I'm not saying that's a good way. I do a lot of social encouraging as well, but then there are some students who may not follow, and so you have to use grades as a motivator, as a incentive to make them work in teams. And so I have small groups with lesser weight for the final grade, and then I have a lot of individual work that has a way more weightage for the final grade. So that way, students understand that working in group is essential. It gives you those skill sets necessary to work in collaborative teams, and then the individual work, through that I assess their own individual competence. And so it's not really a balance because I put lesser weight on the group work, but it works. The other active learning strategy I do is I have these discussion boards, and I use that to do a lot of peer-to-peer networking learning. And what I do again in those discussion board is I say, okay, this is the concept that we studied this week, right? So take this concept, and here is a prompt question. Answer that question, and then try to find an example from your professional or personal life, and then connect it to this problem. So the idea is, how do you bridge the theory and the practice of it? So most of my students work in the public sector and the nonprofit sector, the NGO sector. So they have encountered some of the issues that we talk about, but they don't understand that there is a conceptual framework behind it. there is a theory behind it. So they take the theory and the practice of it, and then they try to bridge it. And so this allows them to think about, okay, so this is what I'm doing in my work, and it's related to this concept. So it gives them a different understanding, a more open perspective about why they are doing all of this. What is organizational behavior? What is management? Why do we need to evaluate our programs? Because I teach program evaluation, and almost all programs need to be evaluated these days. So they understand that, oh, there is a systematic way that programs need to be evaluated. And all of these things um, are related to the skill sets that we are trying to incorporate through all of these active learning and critical thinking skill sets and assessments that we have in the classroom. I don't know if I answered your question, but that's my long answer to your question. So thank you. It was a very good question.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Can I have a
Yeah,
question?
yeah, I have. Yeah, thank you, Gauravi. Yeah, this is Professor Anand Sharma. I am a management educator. Okay, so we discuss cases. Some of the cases are very long, could be about 10 to 15 page cases, and with a number of exhibits, which requires lots of work, calculation, etc. And those cases need to be handled within, say, 4 to 5 sessions, face-to-face sessions. Conducting this case study discussion through online mode, as of now, for me, it is unimaginable. The way you have answered the previous question, as it appears that you can handle it on a semester-long basis, assigning the students into some group work, some components, then making the interactive forum, and then exchanging the discussion and all those things. But for a case, say about 10 to 12 pages case, with a number of exhibits which requires lots of calculation, it becomes very difficult through online. That is my guess. And second point is, as you may be aware, most of the case study discussions have got a teaching teaching note. And those teaching notes are normally prepared keeping the face-to-face mode in view. So what is your take on this? How can we conduct case study discussions having a lots of exhibits which requires calculation, suppose profitability, suppose turnover, right, all these kinds of things. So that's the thing I would like to have your...
Thank you. Thank you so much for your question. It is true that most of the case studies that we use in our management courses, they have case study notes or teachers' notes, teaching notes that are designed for the physical classroom, not the online classroom. You know, the book that I wrote recently, nonprofit teaching nonprofit management, we have teaching notes for online classroom as well. So because we thought that online, well, not we didn't think. It is true that online has become a part and parcel of most of the universities. So we use online teaching notes as well. So to answer your first question, I also have case studies in my classes, and sometimes they are very, very long. So again, I put small groups and assign them the case study. And then I have questions that they need to answer. And if there are calculations like profitability, for us is cost benefit of public budgeting. What we do is we say, okay, this is the case, and then try to work on the different aspects. So we put the questions as well. So these are the things that I want you to answer. And so how you do the cost benefit analysis, you have to show in an Excel spreadsheet and then upload the spreadsheet as well. So yeah, it is challenging, yes, but it is doable. It just needs a lot of teaching presence. So you have to be present and nudging and telling them how to do it. So like in our case, we ask them that you put this in a Word and do the calculations in a spreadsheet, and then put it as a table in the Word document, and then upload the Word document at the end. And then I also have the peer review where everyone talks about in which part of the project students worked on. So if say student A worked on the writing, student B worked on the cost benefit analysis, then it doesn't work, because I want all of them to work on the cost benefit analysis, because that's the core of the case study that I gave them. It takes a lot of work, but that's how I do it, and it has been successful so far. It is difficult, it's challenging, but over the years I've managed to learn what it is that I want the students to learn from this case study, and based on that I assign the questions, the discussion questions after the case study. The teaching notes, I reframe the teaching notes as discussion questions and ask them, okay, think about this, what will happen? And also, we have a, wait, what was the name of the feature? It's a wiki feature in the Canvas element, and then we have the discussion feature. So in the discussion feature, if they post the case study report and they post the final report, when I read it, I make notes. I also ask other students to comment on that post. So when they comment, they critique the work of this particular group. And when we critique, we ask more questions like, okay, how do you do this? What do you learn from this? And so students then answer. So it becomes a long project, but it really helps because students then kind of understand what they're supposed to learn from this particular case study. So yeah, it's hard, but the electronic hallway from Harvard, they have several management case studies that also come with online implementation and online teaching notes. So that might also be helpful. Um, so I don't know if I did answer your question, but for me it wasn't. I mean, it was challenging at first, but now I'm kind of used to it. I've been using it. It's still challenging, yes, but I try to understand whether students are able to um, you know accomplish the objectives from that particular case study. And yeah, I always work with small groups when it comes to case study, and I put them in different rooms. If you're doing synchronous, and then in the different rooms they can discuss. And I also ask them to use those discussion rooms, and they message each other or text each other, and I can see what's going on. So I know who has participated and who has not, and what kind of discussions came up when they were discussing this particular case study. So that's another way of understanding whether the students learned on this project or not. I hope but that's a very good question.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, one query is from Dr. Bhaskar Sharma. First of all, he wished you a happy International Friendship Day.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And he just want to know, when the number of students are large, how can we manage direct interaction with students?
Great. So how large are you talking about? Like, is it over 100, or is it like between 60 and 100?
Over 100, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So we have students. I don't teach undergrad courses, but in our undergrad courses, we have students, um, courses with over 100 students. And so what I have done when I used to teach undergrad students way back, now I don't, but way back then, what I used to do is, again, I put them in smaller groups. And fortunately, I had a teaching assistant, so we could keep an eye on all of the groups. But one of the things that really worked for me is putting out the announcements every Monday. And announcements, there is a section within the announcements feature where when students can ask questions to you, or I put it in a way that they can email me directly their queries. So not all students will read your announcements, but they will get it for sure, and that helps to keep accountability and also outreach. The other thing that I have done is we have that in our LMS, we have the Inspire for Faculty feature, and I can see who has interacted, who has been engaged in the classroom in the coursework. So I take into, so I can say participation. So there are different categories. Participation less than 30%. I click on it, I can get all the emails. And I simply email them, and it's an individual email, not a group email. So it goes directly to the inbox, and I reach out to them, and I say, "What's up with you? Are you okay? Yeah, I haven't seen you in the course." And they feel that, oh, it's more than 100 students, and yet she is talking to me, and they feel that she cares about me, and so it really helps to have that kind of interaction. It's not even an interaction really. I'm just reaching out. I don't say things that will offend them, or they'll feel like I'm condescending in some manner, but I try to say that, are you okay? Why do I not see you in the classroom? And it has helped. Um, the other thing that has helped with social interaction with my students is the discussion board. So the first week, students have to put their own introduction. It could be a video, it could be text, where they talk about who they are, what they do, who's there in their family, and two things by which I can remember them. Some students talk about their dogs, some students talk about their interest in photography, some students talk about things like weird things. And I remembered those students. And so when I talk to them, interact with them, email, I ask them, how are your puppies? And they're like, oh, she knows me very well. So it helps me. It's a lot of work, but I can simply search and I know what the student, what they care about. And if I ask questions about who they care about, they're more likely to be interested in the classroom. Just like in a physical classroom, like I said, I arrive 15 to 20 minutes earlier. We talk about family, we talk about movies, we talk about shows that they watch, and I kind of know what their interests are. And similarly, in the online classroom, that introduction discussion board, I can search through it. Say it's John Smith. Look it up, and okay, he's deployed in Afghanistan. So I ask him, "Are you still in Afghanistan? Is that why you're not able to log on to your coursework?" And he says, "Well, Dr. B, yeah, I've been busy and something." So it helps that relationship, knowing a person, not as a distant student, and them knowing me as a person, not as just the instructor without a face or without any social presence. So social presence can be video, or it could be simply an email nudging them to interact. For large classrooms, it can be difficult, but if you have those solutions that we are fortunate to have, I don't know if you have it, but for us, that has been very, very helpful to reach out to students um, who are lagging behind. And the short videos I talked about, the 5-minute videos, they also help because they humanize me. I talk about, say, this is the final project and this is what I'm expecting, and so it's a 5-minute video, but I go over the things that I'm expecting, and students just like the video. Just like in Facebook, they like it, and when they like it, I know that they have received the message. So it might not be a two-way communication, but I can see they have interacted with me. So a lot of this generation is all about emojis, right? So I let them use emojis for everything. I also let them use whatever they want, whatever that makes them comfortable, so that they can get the learning outcomes as well as at the same time feel part of the generation. So again, I hope this answered your question.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, another questions from Sarkar Mohammad Numan. He has asked, there are science-based practical courses. So, how can we conduct practical courses through online?
Yeah, that is a very interesting question. It's very, very difficult. I know I'm in the College of Architecture, and the professors in the architecture program had almost a heart attack when everything went online because their courses are project based, like studio based. So they have studios and they do carpentry work, they do art work. So again, it's very challenging to teach artwork online. Secondly, I have some of my colleagues work in the physics department, and they have a hard time doing all the lab work online. Um, so since I'm not a science teacher, it's hard for me to answer your question. But I do know that my friend, she's also an Indian, and she works she teaches astronomy at UT Arlington, and she uses an app and she asked students to go out and look up in the sky, and this is an undergrad course with over 100 students, and she asked them to identify the different planets and stars, and right now it's Neowise that's getting all the attention. And so she uses a software to have students get involved and understand astronomy right from their smartphones. So she uses that, and then the students have to report it back. And there are some tools and technologies that's available for the science professors that they use. But to answer your question, there are projects, yes, there are lab work. My colleagues in biology, they were not able to do the research from home, and so they still had to come back to work, and they were allowed to come back because they were doing research on creating a vaccine for coronavirus. And so they are back at the university working in their labs. So yeah, it is very difficult. There might be certain things that are accessible, the tools and technologies that you can use, but in general, doing practical lab kind of work is very difficult through online. And since this is not my area, it's hard for me to give you strategies or ideas. So sorry.
Thank you so very much, ma'am. And another query is from Gopal Burman. Uh, he has asked, ma'am, what is your view on effective classroom management with regard to an online class having students from multilingual and cross-cultural background in a state like Assam?
Great. It all depends on what is the mode of instruction or the language that you use in your university. For us, so I'm in Texas, and Texas is multi-ethnic, multilingual, multiracial. Uh, it's very very international. We have people. A majority of the population in Texas speaks Spanish. They have very limited knowledge of English because Texas was part of Mexico long back, and so a lot of people from Mexico live here. A lot of Indian population, although in my program we don't have any Indians. They are mostly in the science and engineering field. Um, then we have a lot of African American and white people and internationals like from Iran and Middle East. We have a lot of people from there. We have a lot of people from China. We have a lot of people from country. We have a few from Nepal, and one of my favorite students is from Nepal. We have people from Bangladesh, and they are some of my best friends. And so, yeah, we again, I teach in a very multilingual, multiracial, multicultural um, environment. And this question brings up a very important point about how to be culturally sensitive when teaching. Um, there are things that some students from some uh, ethnic background or racial background might not like. Like there are words that white Americans don't like, it's offensive, and there are words that black Americans don't like, and it's offensive for them. And there are things that we might do, like shaking hands, that the Middle Eastern women might not be comfortable with. So in an online program, so this is a classroom example I'm giving you. But in an online program, it becomes even more difficult because you don't even know what's the background of or the cultural sensitivity issues. So one of the things that I try to do is try to have. Oh, the other thing is gender imbalance. That's also very important. Studies have shown that online learners are mostly women because they feel more comfortable learning online. They can be more social online than men. And the other thing is that women, they tend to be more homemakers, so they tend to take care of families, of parents, and children, and so they have only limited time and they cannot come to the university for higher studies, so they can take courses online. So there are different reasons, but and that's true for our courses as well. We have more women in the online classroom than men. So the gender is again an issue, and not just the culture, but also gender. So when we teach, we have to be aware of this, and so we get training in cultural competence every year. Things that we have to say, we cannot say, things that can lead to a lawsuit. So yes, those things are very important. So when we do especially when we do this active learning, the case studies and small group discussion, it's important to understand who's in that group, because there might be people who may not know what they can say or cannot say, and there are people in that group that are from a very different racial background or ethnic background, and it might be offensive for them. And so one of the things that I have in my classroom policies is um, mutual respect and respecting each other, and things that you can say, there are things that you cannot say, things that you might say in jest, but it could be offensive for the others. So I make sure that those uh, rules are posted where everyone can see. And I keep reminding students about this. Hey, you cannot say these things. And if there is a report, then I try to have a one-on-one with the student, and I say, do you know what you just said, or to this person or that person? And uh, sometimes students are not even aware that they said something offensive, because that's how they were raised. They didn't know that these words are offensive for the other people in that group or other students or me. Um, and they say things to me, and I simply say, can we have a moment together? Can we talk? And then I try to clarify. So usually talking with that particular student that created the problem helps. Sometimes some students may not take it in an easy manner. I have had that before, and I got threats from this guy. So it happens, and I just try to make sure that the classroom policies that I have, the disciplinary policies that I have, are all in the syllabus, in the LMS, and students know about it. That's the first thing that they have to do in week one, and they have to read all the classroom policies and check on it, saying that they have read it. So I know for sure that they have done that. And then we have some university disciplinary policies as well, which I put in the syllabus, and it's also in the Canvas LMS. That's another thing that they have to do on day one of the course. They have to go through all the university disciplinary policies so that they understand. The other thing is there are some people with disabilities, like there are students who may not be able to see, or they may not be able to hear. So we have to make sure that the things that we post are accessible by everyone, regardless of the disability. So for example, now there is electronic braille, right? So when I post my lectures, say if it's a video lecture, I have to do captioning, and the captioning can be converted to electronic braille for those students that are visually impaired. Then the let's say the PDFs that I post, they have to be in an accessible what do you call it, accessible format. And so students, again, who are visually impaired can read it in electronic braille. So our LMS, it has something called LI, and LI checks for the accessibility of all the things that we post. So if it is not accessible, I have to take it down and make it accessible and repost it. So this helps with people, the students who have some disability, and they are able to read and view and watch our videos through the electronic braille. For students who have hearing impairment, since when I do videos, I talk about it. So if they can't see, they can at least listen to me. Um, and the videos can be played slow or fast or medium, so they can go slow. If they don't understand what I'm saying, they can go slow. And then what do you call it? Oh, and the PowerPoints that I post also have my voice to over. So I do video as well as voice to over. I do video because some students lip read, so they can see my lips and they can read what I'm saying. So this is another way we try to be uh, aware of the different kinds of people that we are serving, the different kinds of students we are serving, and try to make our courses more accessible. And that's one of the reasons, I guess, our program has the least retention rates in the whole of the university. We have actually a higher, one of the highest growth in the whole university.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Ma'am, another query is from Sangita Bhagavati. She wants to know what would be the best option to conduct exam or assessment effectively?
Oh, depends on what LMS you use. Since we use Canvas, we have there are you can create quizzes and exams within the LMS, and then there is an assignment feature which I use for papers, and then when I'm setting up the assignment, I can also check for UniCheck. That's a software that's embedded within the assignment feature, and UniCheck checks for plagiarism. Plagiarism. So if anybody copies from the internet, I can see it immediately. They can see it immediately. And since I said earlier, academic discipline is and plagiarism is taken very seriously at UTA. So the moment the students submits the paper, they can see that there a lot of the things that they put in the paper was shown as plagiarized, and so they can take the paper down, rewrite it, and then post it again. So I check for the percentage this it shows as plagiarized, and then based on that, I make a decision whether to report the students, talk to that student, or just ignore it based on how much is plagiarized. Um, so I use the assignment feature. For exams, again, we have something called Respondus something something. I forgot the full form. I don't use that as much because when I do the exams, I do my exams are not from the book at all. I use a theory, but then I have them find the solution from the field or from other resources like journals and newspapers and other secondary sources. Or I give them a data set and I say, okay, analyze this using linear regression, or I say this is a data set and try to do the cost benefit analysis for the last 5 years. And so they do it. And these are not taken from the book, so there is no way they can cheat. I also ask for the reasoning, and when they give me the reason, I can see whether they did it by themselves or they had a shadow writer, which some students usually use shadow writers to write for them. And since I have, so one of the things that I forgot to tell you is that I have assessment throughout the semester, right? I told you about that. And so I can check whether the student wrote that paper themselves or they had somebody else write for them. Because not everybody can have a shadow writer each week. So I can understand the students writing, and then when the final paper or the final exam comes in, I know whether that exam was written by the student or somebody else. One of the other things that I do in my online exams is I have a time limit, and so within that time they have to take the test. And I have a fair idea of how long it will take to take that exam. So when students copy, they usually take more time than when students do it from their own, brain. So that's another thing that I found over the years, that because they have to look at books and other sources, it takes them more time. But if they're doing it on their own without any help, then it takes less time. So that's one other way of understanding. And then I don't ask students to write word for word from the book. And so there is no chance of them, copy pasting anything. I ask them, okay, this is the concept, explain now. And use examples from your organization or use examples from 5 other secondary resources to come up with your explanation. So, and I say you cannot write anything word for word from the book. You cannot have direct quotation. That's one of the things that I'm famous for here at UTA, is that I'm one of the only ones that always say no direct quotes, because when students write direct quotes, I have no way to um, understand whether they understood the concept or not, because they're simply copy pasting, right? So if I ask them, now explain in your own words what this means and give me examples from 5 other sources, and that's when they try thinking and writing. And so there is no scope of copy pasting, and I have an understanding of the students' competencies. So that's how I do it.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you again. Uh, Pranav sir, there are no any queries in the chat box. Can we wind up the session?
I have a question.
Okay, okay,
If
okay.
I'm
Thank
given.
you.
I am Fokhar Islam Patwari, lecturer of Bangladesh Open University at the Department of Political Science. Thank you so much, Karabi, for your very interactive presentation. And I get to know your wonderful experience and insightful thoughts and ideas from your presentation. Especially, I am also a student of political science. So you are teaching public policy. So I am really interested to the public policy. I am quite enthusiastic to your 5 E's: engagement, experiment, encouragement, empathize, and evaluation. It's really serious issues that if it requires further clarifications and discussions, really it is enthusiastic. 5 E theories. Thank you so much for your 5 E's. I would like to know how to assess the emotional intelligence of the students. And in the physical classroom, we normally used the instructors use the nonverbal communication. So I would like to know from you your experiences in online classes. How do you manipulate the students with their emotional intelligence and the nonverbal communications? Thank you.
Thank you so much for that very interesting question. Nonverbal communication is kind of taking a lot of research space these days, especially in the online classroom, just because this is something that when you don't see a student and their body language, it's hard to say, right? So that is indeed a very good question. So for me, the way I assess students' nonverbal communication is by the way they write. I know that it's not something easy to understand, but if you see if you have a student for 2 3 courses, you have an understanding of how they usually write and how what they're thinking and what would be. You can also kind of assess what the next question would be. To give you an example, right now, this morning, yesterday I received the student's email, and she asked me that she forgot to complete an assignment. It was for 5 points, and this assignment was due. When was it due? On Monday. It was due on Monday, and then she forgot about it. So her first question was, if, "Are those 5 points for the assignment?" I'm like, yes. Um, I missed it. So will my 5 points be deducted? I'm like, yes. Uh, Check the syllabus. It specifically says that if you do not complete that assignment, you don't get 5 points. So essentially, you lose 5 points out of the total 100%, 100 points. So she was, and then the following question was, can I retake the question, the quiz? I'm like, I already thought that she would be asking me that question because the way she was going on, even though it was an email communication, email interaction, I kind of understood that she was going to ask me for an extension for even if it's for lesser points, she'll ask for an extension. So now I have to decide whether this student really deserves that extension because she has a history of forgetting her due dates. And the due dates for us on Canvas is it's posted on the first page. The moment they enter Canvas, that's what they see, that this is due on this day. So she has no excuse of saying, I was not told about it. It's right there. But how much students can manipulate the professor is you will know from the way they start their conversation. Um, so that's one thing. The other thing I have noticed over my years is there are some students who call me, hey, professor, right? And they do this almost every time. And when I answer them, I say, Dr. Besbur, why that's how I, write my complete my emails. Yet they don't get it. So what I get from that nonverbal, nonverbal communication, it's email communication, is that they don't even care who's on the other side. They don't want to know the professor. They simply want their questions answered, which is okay to me. I really don't care if they have to know me. What I'm more interested in is they need to care about the course, because if they care about the course, they are going to do well in that course. So, and this also speaks to emotional intelligence. If these are adults learners, they are not kids. So they need to have that basic decency to address someone in a manner that person wants to address. And almost everywhere, my students, like here at UK, they call me Dr. B because they can barely pronounce Besborwa. So they call me Dr. B, and I'm okay with that. But there are some students who won't even make that effort to call me by that name. This shows that, well, they're emotionally, they are not as intelligent perhaps, or maybe they just don't care. And to me, that also speaks how much they're involved in the coursework. There are some who get it. Like the time I respond to their email and I write Dr. Besporwa, they call me Dr. Besporwa or Dr. P. Again, that shows that they are smart people. they know how I want to be addressed, and they use that little prompt or nudge to reframe the way they call me or they address me. But not all students do that. So that's another way I kind of assess students' emotional intelligence. The other one is when I'm doing synchronous lessons, like I said earlier, I cannot make the students turn on their videos. So um, their microphones are also off because otherwise there's a lot of noise. And I keep talking and talking, but I know that there might be students back there or no. So I ask them questions, like almost every 10 minutes I ask a question and I say, you can either use the chat feature to give me a thumbs up, or you can unmute yourself, then speak to me, or turn on your video. And then say out of 60 students in that classroom, maybe one or two will turn on the video and answer, but most of them use the chat feature. So I kind of know that they are not comfortable on video. And I respect that. Not everybody is comfortable on video, or maybe they may not want me to see what's happening in their background, right? So that's okay. I don't make anybody do something that they don't want to do. So I said, okay, just use the chat feature. We have this tool, let's use it. And that's when participation increases a whole lot. So one of the other things that I have learned from my experience is that giving students more options to participate in the classroom enhances their participation. They feel that the instructor understands them and their limitations when it comes to say where they are. Maybe they are in somewhere where they don't want to see what's happening in the background, which is fine as long as they are present in the classroom, interacting with everybody. I think they are still making progress. So that's what I look for. Then making them participate and in a video, and then understanding from their body language. So I try different methods to understand their emotional intelligence, their cultural competence, and so far it has worked. Yeah, there were times when I was not able to understand a student's needs, but then overall, I think this has worked for me.
Thank you, ma'am. And this was a very wonderful session. You have touched every nook and corner of the online system of learning, which is very essential nowadays in the present time worldwide for each and every teachers. And you have given the ideas about 5 E's, which included engagement, experiment, encouragement, empathize, evaluation, and which will be helpful for us for organizing the online courses for us. And I hope, even you have mentioned some strategies for organizing the online classes. This will also be very helpful for us as well as all the participants, and I hope all the participants are very benefited for your session, ma'am. Thank you again. And with this, now I want to formally end up this session. And again, I want to give my heartiest thanks to all the participants. And ma'am, thank you for giving your valuable time and giving a nice presentation in front of us. And there is a small announcement for the participants that the last session will start at 2:30 p.m. on online learner learning assessment and course evaluation strategies. This is very important session because evaluation is very important part of the education system. To know the fulfillment of educational aims and objectives, the evaluation is very much important. So this session, to this session, Dr. Nisa Singh will come as a speaker from IGNOU, New Delhi. Therefore, I request all the participants to present tomorrow's session at sharp 2:30 p.m. And again, this session will continue up to 4 p.m. And after 4 p.m. to 4:30 p.m., there will be valedictory session where Professor Madhu Prahar, Director SEMCA, will be present, and therefore I request all the participants to participate in the tomorrow's session. Thank you so much, and good night to all. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to me.